Hello, everyone. It's 12 o'clock, so I would like to start our third Launch and Learn session, Launch and Learn workshop with Novacura. Today, we will talk about improvements that we applied to our Novacura Flow clients, and we wanted to maximize end user efficiency. For the next 60 minutes, we will show you a lot of examples of our latest version of our applications. Let me present our experts today. I'll start with myself. I'm a host, Lukasz Majer, Director of Marketing at Novacura. And today with me are Malin Johansson. Malin is our product owner, and Ola Carlander, who works at customer success team. And today we will all participate in this presentation. We will spend a lot of time on presenting the latest improvements our R&D team implemented, and then we will show you the upcoming future that is really close, I hope, and then Q&A session. So it will be my part, and it will be a little bit of the theory, but I think it's really important for all of us to precisely understand what this UX really means. So there are like two different definitions. There is UI and UX. And when people typically think about the UX, they mostly think about the UI. So what are the differences between these two definitions? Let's start with the UI. So what you see on the screen, this is a screenshot borrowed from the mock close scam. UI is the design of user forms, user windows. So you have layout, you have different components on the screen, and you start with, we call it low fidelity mockups until the high fidelity mockups. So from the wireframes until up to the final like visual design with all the images and colors and everything. And this is, in simple words, this is the UI. So UI is like UI elements and transitions between them, the layout. We talk about readability, and we also take care about the aesthetics. This is UI, but the UX is more important in that. And to continue with the touristic application example, let's look at the wider context. You see that tourist somewhere in a mountain, it's probably the Mediterranean area. And so UX is when you look at your user and his behavior in a wider context. So what do we see here? We have light conditions. And so when you know that, you need to take into consideration if there is a need for maybe a higher contrast mode in your application, because the user might operate in a hard, strong light condition. The other thing you should consider is the quality of the internet connection for this kind of application. Is the internet connection always stable, or even is it available all the time? So maybe you should prepare the application for the limited bandwidth situation, or maybe it should operate in an offline mode. Another thing you should take into consideration is the temperature. And of course, if it's warm, then I think it's no problem. But if it's very cold and users operate in gloves, then you should probably design your user interface in a little bit different way. These are just examples of the conditions. In general, we call it the environment of the user, so where the user operates. But it's not only, the UX is not only limited to that. So let's consider a time frame. You should, when you think about the UX, you should consider what has happened before. So maybe the tourist came to the viewpoint by a bus. So maybe it's reasonable to provide a route planner or maybe bus timetable in this touristic application to help him organize his whole day, not only like read about the specific points in a foreign country that he visits. But what will happen then? Maybe the user would want to share his photos and his opinion on social. So it's reasonable to provide a social media integration. It's also UX, that kind of thinking. We don't design here the layout of the user screen. We think that the social media integration is needed. That's the UX. And the other step that can come later is that maybe the tourist would want to visit some restaurant and eat some lunch. It's reasonable to provide some directory of restaurants that are nearby. Yeah, so this is UX. We call it a process. You need to understand the process, the timeline, what happens next, what happens before. To sum it up, UX means, we are simplifying it, by the way, but to make it simple, UX means perfect knowing of the environment and also understanding of the entire process. And to do that, you really need to know your users. You need to meet them, and not only meet them anywhere. You need to meet them at in their natural environment and observe their daily work. Then you are able to design a perfect UX. So in Novacura, a couple of months ago, we decided to meet our customers. And how do you think our regular end users look like that? Well, some of them, of course, yes, but not the majority. The majority of our users look like this. So a warehouseman, or a specialist that works in a laboratory, or a field service technician that needs to operate in different, environments, or a man who works at the shop floor. These are typical Novacura Flow end users. Or I forgot about one type of users, very important to us, also a man who works in a service and, for instance, repairs the public transportation wagons. So these are our regular users, and they are a bit specific because they use these applications for professional purposes. It's not a touristic app. It's something much more like sophisticated. So we did an analysis, and what we've done, we visited our customers that represent different industries, like on these pictures, so furniture production, ceilings production, electricity provider, research and laboratory, and public transportation. And we interviewed more than 50 end users, of which some were like end users and some were flow designers, people probably like you who design flow applications in a flow studio. And we gathered their like claims, sometimes requirements, new ideas from them. And we also observed them at the daily work. We also talked to our Novacura consultants because they have a lot of experience gathered during implementation projects. And we also went through the change request queue. So we gather your feedback on daily basis, and we reviewed this big database. And we also applied a feedback loop during the development process, which means we involved our customers and our internal consultants in the development process. All of that to get better understanding of what our real users really need. So when we did that, we gathered several conclusions. And to tell you more about it, now I hand over to Ola Carlander. So you can grab my screen now, Ola.
Thank you, Lukasz. I'll do so. Sharing screen. There we go. So if I get the thing running here, eventually. So as Lukasz said, we interviewed a bunch of users of Novacura Flow, and the main points we gathered was maybe in order here actually, the navigation part when you were using a client, the history button, the back button, and the exit button especially when you were using a mobile, were a little bit tricky to understand exactly what they did. Next to that, it was difficult to see which control were you supposed to click on, not really sure where to click, which was an input field. It was a little bit cluttery like that. And one major point as well was that when you click something and the system was working with an ERP system or CRM system or something like that, in the background, there was no indication to the user if something was going on. You know, one of those little progress bars were really missing. And the same thing there for the sign-in page, that when you signed in, there was no feedback to that something was going on. Maybe you were out in a forest or something with the bad signal, and you didn't really know what was going on. So some sort of feedback there as well was missing. And if you were in the same forest here, it was a little bit, maybe you had an offline flow, it's possible in this scenario. And it was a little bit unclear what was offline and online on your phone or on your device at that time. There was a lot of scrolling. We got the feedback on that the forms tended to be pretty long, so you had to scroll with your thumb. And if you were out in the field, maybe you were wearing gloves, as Lukasz mentioned before, and it's a little bit tricky to scroll up and down. So getting the compactness of everything was important. And also the contrast, same thing again. If you had sun glares or something in your screen, it needs to be better contrast so we can see exactly what's shown on the screen pretty much. So those were the pain points. That's the sort of the bad news, which brings us to the good news. We've taken care of them. This is not everything. We got more feedback, obviously, but we have to take them in order. So we're working on more thing, obviously, but this is what we've done so far, and we want to show you what it looks like.
Yeah, show you what we've done. And when we started the development, there were certain keywords that we wanted to adhere to and guidelines that we were to follow. So we tried to make the clients guiding, as in the client should continue to provide the user with guidance and information how to navigate. It should be efficient, so it should move towards the user's goal with as few clicks and in as little time as possible. It should be forgiving, so if you do something that you might not want to do, then the client should ask you, is this really what you want to do? And it should be possible to cancel and click OK if you want to continue. And it should also be aesthetic. So the interface should provide a harmonious and balanced visual experience. We also decided to keep the interfaces native. So the Android app does not look exactly the same way as the iOS one. And this we did because there are established design patterns for the different platforms. And we also think that most users are actually used to using one type, either Android or iOS, and therefore we wanted the Flow user to recognize himself when they log on to the app, and therefore know some of the navigation just by having used other apps on the same phone. Trying to keep the same navigation pattern in both apps would, it wouldn't make any sense, because we want the user to recognize where they are. From a functionality perspective, though, and the information available in the app, it's the same. So even though you might navigate in different ways, what you can do is exactly the same in both apps.
And the screenshots here is going to be from Android. So initially, we're going to look at 3 clients, actually: the Android client, the iOS client, and the web client. But the screenshots initially are mostly from an Android client. Again, it might look a little bit different, but conceptually it's the same, and it will be just too much information if we put both iOS and Android and web on the same page. So we'll divide it a little bit, but mostly it's for Android here right now.
Yeah. So as you can see, this is the connector server page. We have done a lot of changes. It's a lot less cluttered, and the actual changes we've done is that we have just one input field now for the PIN code and or server address. So you don't have to click in different places or know where to click in order to key in the PIN code or server address. We also added the recent server list, which is a list of the 5 most recent servers the user or the phone connected to. So it remembers it. You don't have to know the server address all the time, and you don't have to know the PIN code. There will always be the list of the 5 latest ones to use.
And this is really good news for me as a developer. I know. So looking at the left-hand side here, that was the old client, and this is how we're going to present these slides. We have the old client on the left-hand side and the new client on the right-hand side. And instead of having to go, if I was first running some flows in a test environment and then wanted to see how they looked in development, or I changed between two different environments, I have the recent service now. It's going to help me a lot for connecting and disconnecting to different flow servers. It might not look like much, but it's nice to have. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep.
Oh yeah, right. The old client here. So all the way to the left here, you see the old client, what it would look like on a phone. In this case, we only have 3 flows, which is not the end of the world. I can find them, I can click them. But it's not unusual out there that we would have rather 15 or 20 or even more flows. And it's going to be a little bit cumbersome. And again, I need to take my glove off and start scrolling to find my flow.
And what we added in the new client is the the possibility to search. So if I have a long list of flows, I can search, and in the Android client, I can actually start the workflow from the search result. That's not possible in the iOS client. There, it will filter by menu. We also added the slide left possibility on the workflow itself, and it's especially useful for paused workflows. Before, if a workflow was paused, you had to enter the workflow again and click quit in order to quit it. Now you can just do slide left, quit, and the workflow has quit. If you do want to restart, it's again, same thing. You can either click on the workflow or you can do slide left and do restart. And we also added a screenshot here of the home view for the iOS client, just to show that it looks a little bit different how you navigate. The iOS client has got tabs down here, whilst the Android client has got this little hamburger bar in which you can get to the preference settings, language settings and stuff like that.
And one thing while we're here, I don't know if this is clear, but this little arrow here, that was in the old client when I started a flow and I didn't finish it, I exited. It's in paused state. And this was the icon before. Now it's more clear, I think, where it says paused like that.
And we have a short movie here just to show what I partly just said. We have added server info also. That's quite good to know. So the user can now see which server they're connected to, which version the server is on, and also the app version. And we also added a QR code for the server. Which is good for if I want to try something that Malin has done. She could just show me this and I can bring up my phone and I can scan that QR code and I will be getting access to the server. Well, I need to log in obviously, but the server address is provided for me. Yeah. And just some other new things. If you long click on the menu, you can expand and collapse all the menus. If you short click, you will collapse and expand just one individual menu. And then we pause the workflow just to show the slide left functionality. As you can see now, I can restart the workflow and I go back to the same page I was on when I paused it. I can slide left again and I can quit the workflow. Nice. There's also more the drawer that opens where you can do all of these things also. And the intention there is to add more functionality eventually. So that's why we added the more part. And search. I can search for the workflow. If I click on the workflow, I can start it directly from the search in the Android client. That was it. And now we're going to show some improvements that we've done for the offline mode. But first, just a short movie to describe what it does. For those of you not familiar with offline, it's to be used when you do not have connectivity or network connection or a bad network connection. So basically, the user downloads data, they work with the data, transactions are created, and these transactions are uploaded when the user is back in the office or back where they have where they have internet connection. And to show you what we have done is that we have made it easier to see if the offline data has expired. You can click straight on this text here to get to the offline page, which is here. In the old client, you had to individually download the offline data, whilst in the new one, we added the download all button. So if you have an awful lot of offline data that is to be downloaded, an awful lot of workflows, then it will save you a little bit of time. So instead of 3 clicks, it's just 1 click. There's also been quite a lot of improvements when it comes to offline transactions in error. And this might happen when you get back to the office and the transactions are uploaded to the ERP system or whatever connecting system that they should go to. And if not all transactions are uploaded, you will end up in error status. And again, you can click on the text to go to the offline page where you can fix it. And this is just to describe the same thing in the iOS client, that you get this little red pill to visualize that there are transactions in error. If I go to the offline page, it looks like this. And this is the big improvement, that before, if you ended up in error status with one transaction, you had to delete that transaction and all the following transactions. In the new client, you can delete just the erroneous transaction and the rest will then be uploaded. Obviously, you can still fix the error in the corresponding system and retry to upload the transactions, but just in case that doesn't work, you can remove the erroneous one and the rest will be uploaded.
Inboxes. So we haven't done any functional changes here. It's more design. The things that are changed is in the old client, if I moved between for each item in my inbox, there is a calendar field. If I chose to enumerate that or put dates in that calendar field, I could sort my items on a calendar. I had to move. There is a submenu under date, and I can shift between calendar and just a list view. And in the new client, well, but maybe you should touch the new client.
In the new client, then we added, it's very, we added, so the calendar is accessible through the calendar icon. So it's clearer for the user where to click in order to access specific data. Apart from that, as Ola said, the functionality is the same. So you will see your work orders or whatever it is that ends up in the inbox. And then we have input fields. Again, not any huge changes from a functional perspective, because input field is an input field. But we added, so the user can see if they try to write something erroneous in an input field, that is a text input field, which is set to contain a URL or an email address or a number. So you can see here, it tells you straight away if the format of what you're trying to key in is not correct. And once you have done it correctly, the error message will disappear. And this is just to show you what the new calendar control looks like and the time inputs.
And then, we made some changes to the calendar layout. So this is the inboxes we just talked about. This is not the inbox calendar. This is the calendar you have as an item within the Flow users app. And in the old client, it's look like the encircled little things there. What is represented down here is we call them blurbs. I don't know. I have never heard that word before I opened Flow Studio, to be honest. But if you haven't worked with them, these are, you can categorize them by day. So in this example, we have a time reporting flow. And for each day, I'll have the sum of my reported hours, my scheduled hours, my absence, and then flex. So flex is for the entire week, but anyway, for each day you go in, you see the same thing for each day, but it's a summary for the day. Anyway, never mind. So these are the blurbs that when you created more and more of them, it really took up a lot of space on the screen. You see they were expanding in different sizes depending on how much text you had. So a little bit suboptimal to work with.
In the new client, they are added just on one line. If you have multiple blurbs, it's scrollable left to right. So it does not take up more space from the transactions which you will add below the blurbs. And as you can see, the whole screen is more compact. So you can actually see more information on one screen than you could before. And a short movie. Oops. Oh, it started.
So this is the old client, what it looks like. When you're going into, so now I create, now I am in a day, I chose to create a new time report for this day. It opens up a different screen where I get to choose project. And as I'm a poor consultant here, I have a lot of projects working with, lots of things to do all the time. And this list, as you can see, it's long, right? So I had to work my way through the list until I found my project, select the project, and then worst case, the same thing again for, well, not report code, that's going to be fairly easy. But if I have a couple of these lists, it's going to be tedious. That is the old client. And in the new client,
yeah.
Okay, I need to save my time as well. Fine, I'll save it.
Otherwise, you have to do it again.
Right.
Takes up twice as much time.
Right.
And in the new client, we have added the search in the list. I know this has been really requested by a lot of customers. So instead of going through the long list, you just search for whatever it is you're after. And as you can see, it's a lot quicker than to actually do your time reporting. And again, the view of what you have reported is now more compact than it was before. Oops, now it starts again. It was so good, we need to see it twice.
Right. All right, so moving on to the list selection input. In the old client here, if I needed to go, in this scenario, I need to select the capital and then I want to select the color. So moving into the, So if I need, I have my phone, I need to select capital, I press on the list, I find my capital, I press on that, and then I need to select the color, I press on the list and I select my color. So that is 4 clicks, which is a little bit annoying to have to do.
Yeah. So in the new client, we added the option to show the list selection inline, which means that the list selection, the full list will open within the user step. So you can have an input field, you can have a calendar, and then you can have a list selection with the full list already expanded. And as you can see here in the example, you select the capital, you select the color, and you move next. So only 2 clicks as opposed to going back and forth in the old one. And this is a studio setting. There are 3 options for the Flow Designer, either opened, closed, or automatically. Automatically means that there's logic in the client that will calculate if the list is to open or not. And basically that's based on how many other complex controls are available in the step, how long the list is, and so on. And there is a reference here to the Flow Help. If you're interested in the logic, it will be explained in the Flow Help.
So if you zip up your phones real quick and scan that 3D barcode, 2D barcode, 3D barcode, 2D. The QR code there is going to take you to the help section for this functionality.
And again, just a short movie to describe the list selection inline. And in this case, I created a user step where I have a delivery date. I have a list selection to select a delivery term and then an input field for additional comments. So in the first example here, the list selection is closed. So I will select my date. I will open the list selection, select the delivery term, and I can add a comment. In the second example here, the list selection is opened in line. As you can see now, I still have the date, but the list selection input rows are shown directly. So I do not have to open it. I can click straight away to select the delivery term I'm after. And just as a third example, having two open list selections, if I'm not selecting a actual date, but a delivery day, then I can have all the weekdays. I select Tuesday, I select the free carrier, and I'm done. So this is click saving functionality.
Anti-clickbait.
Exactly. We're whoops.
And even further, when you go into the list multi-selection, it becomes even more clear that we needed to do something, I think, because the clicks really, or not the clicks maybe, but the searching, especially when you went into, well, okay, maybe I need to explain what's going on here. So we have a list, a multi-list selection here. What we're doing though is we're scanning in this scenario. So we have a scanner, and I have a barcode, so I scan the barcode. It's going to populate with a bunch of fields. So I go to my warehouse, I find a highlighter pen, I find a shipping label, and I find a sticky note. Now though, if I want to remove one of my selected items, so I decided that, well, highlighter pen, I must have just passed that and scanned it accidentally. I don't want that anymore.
The shipping label is the one you
want.
want.
Shipping label. Okay, I don't want shipping label. I definitely want my highlighter pen. So in order for me in the old client to remove the shipping labels, I needed to go back into the list and actually find my item that I wanted to remove and remove it. So it wasn't an easy way for me to just remove it on the spot there.
Whilst in the new client, we do exactly the same thing. And to start with, I might mention that if you saw in the old client, if you have the list selection, it actually opens and then goes back. In the new client, the scanning does not open, so it's not the flicking back and forth of the list selection rows. So in this case, we just scan to the start. Nope.
Almost.
Almost. We do it again. So we scan, 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 and you can see now that there is a little X to the right-hand side. You just click on that, and then the item that you scanned that you don't want has been removed. So again, you don't have to go in, find the item, click on it, go back. You just click the X and it's gone. And
here we have them again. Or
yeah. This is just to highlight the difference between the old client and the new client. As you can see, it's just to remove the items directly in the user step for the new client. And then we have font size. The font size in Flow, you can change it if you change it in your phone preferences. So it's not a Flow setting to make the font bigger or smaller, but if you, like me, wear glasses and you want to have a bigger font size on your phone, then you can change it, and that will also be applied in the Flow client. As you can see here, this is screenshots from a Samsung phone. The right hand or the left side is the default setting, and on the right hand side I took a screenshot where the font is set to the largest one available in that particular phone.
And then this might, again, maybe it's not so obvious on a PowerPoint on a big screen, but when you're actually on the phone, this difference is huge actually. Onto the grid. Grid is popular, but there used to be some limitations. So in the old client here, we have a grid, right? So in the very leftmost image here, we are showing the list in list presentation, which is shown here. We could also choose to show it in card presentation. So each row got presented as a card like that, but you couldn't do much more than just pretty much selecting a row and move forward.
In the new client, we have added so you can sort by clicking on the column header. We've also added that in card view, the cards are selectable by long click, and we added search in the grid. I know this one is really very much requested. So those were 3 things we added. On top of that, we also added flexibility to set the row height for the grid. So depending on what you want to do, maybe you want it compact, so you want to see a lot of data on one screen, or you want it selectable, and you want it you want it to be easy for the user to click on the correct row. Then it's now possible to set the row height to either small, medium, or large. It will automatically default to medium. If you have old workflows, it will be set to medium. So if you want something to change there, you would have to go in and do it manually. But it's now possible from Flow 6.14 to set the row heights. And the last thing that we changed in the grid is that there is now also a additional setting on the row selection mode. So you can have auto forward on click. And that basically means that if you have a selectable grid, a single select, and you have no controls which will get focus underneath the grid, then you can set it to on click, move to the next user step.
Saving clicks, all about saving clicks. The pinned user steps. Not everyone is using pinned user steps, but they are mainly used for showing more information about where you are in the flow. So, and they will be shown like illustrated up here on the old client. And you choose, well, it's like a user step that you set as a pinned user step before the actual user step, and then they will be shown up here in the client.
In the old client, the user steps, if you had multiple ones, they were squeezed in to the width of the client. In the new one, you will have these round thingies, and they will constantly have or they will keep its size. And if you have multiple pin steps, then this it becomes scrollable, so you can just scroll to get to the pin step. And it's also worked differently in horizontal mode. If you put your tablet or your phone in horizontal mode, the way the pin steps open is different compared to the old one. We haven't really gotten the screenshots of that, so that one you need to try for yourself. But it navigates in a slightly different way, and it's easier for the user to get to the information. That's been the whole intent with this. And then we have some additional cats and dogs.
User step reloading. This is something that we've been missing, honestly, as flow designers. When you are in a user step, the only way to refresh the data was to either draw an arrow with the button going back to the same user step with a dummy thing in the middle just to refresh the data. So that was a little bit cumbersome. And also if we had the verb task or the subtask, same thing there, you couldn't really reload the data on exit. So you need to do this dirty tricks to get around that.
Maybe we should, yeah, the reloading, the way you do it is that you have a data arrow going straight into a user step, and you have to set the user step to be reloadable. And again, the old workflows that that comes from upgraded versions, they will not have this set. In the old in new ones though, created from 6.14, it will automatically tick that box. And if we now show, maybe now you need to
pay attention.
pay attention. These are 5 ways in which the reload can be used. And the first example, I have a list on my phone to the right, or a grid, and I do a database upload. So I changed the part description. Yeah, not sorry, update. Yes, I changed the description, and then I do swipe down. As you can see, the description now changed. I change it back. I do swipe down again, and it changes back. And
pause there for a second. So, and the swipe down, what she means by that is just that you swipe down on the screen, right? Yeah.
In the second example, I have a verb subtask. So here you can see that the part number 1001, the description is envelope. I now have verb subtask which changes the part name, and it goes through a machine step to update the data source. So if I click on the verb, I enter the part number I want to change the description for. I change it from calendar to label. I go back to the user step, and as you can see, the description is now changed. The third example is when you have a control that is editable. What should happen if you made a change and you accidentally or consciously swipe down to update the data? What should happen? There's then a reloading studio setting. So in this case, I will ask to keep my local changes. You can see that I will now change the description. I add blue. I go back to the user step, I swipe down, and as you can see, nothing happens.
Which means something happened.
Yeah, it's working, exactly. Yeah. The next one is I ask the system to discard my changes. So if I make a change and I do swipe down, then it will remove the changes I've done.
So not yet sent to the
Exactly.
database.
I mean, if you click next, then it'll go through a machine step and update the data source. So then the change obviously will be there. But if you made the change locally on your phone, then you can update or not update depending on the setting. The setting. The fifth way to do this is by using the event step, which is a new element that we added in 6.14, and there is a timer trigger set on it. So in this case, I'm asking the system to update the data on my screen every 15 seconds.
So now is when we wait 15 seconds. So pay attention. Yeah, exactly. Stand-up comedian here. So pay attention to the timestamp over here. But right now, this is what the time is. Malin does an update in the database. And 15 seconds can be longer than you think when you're waiting. But to increase the suspense, we're just going to stand here and stare at it.
Yeah,
it updated. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Pay attention.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that was those. And now I'm never doing this right. Okay. When it comes to the merging rules for the reloading, different controls work in different ways. So there is information on the help page. Again, follow the link or scan the QR code and you can read about it in the help just to see. The example I had here was for the grid, but it works differently for different controls depending on what they can do, basically. So scan this or go into Flow Help. It's on the user step where you can find all the information. Okay, last but not least, what we are working on now. We are working on a new web client. We've done the Android client, we've done the iOS client, and we now have the new web client, which is not done. But here is a preview of it. And what we've done is that we changed. So instead of having the tabs for the menus, we now have a menu list on the left-hand side, which you can open, close, and it collapses back and forth. You can update all the workflows directly in the screen without having to refresh the browser. We have a mobile view, so it's fully responsive if you make the browser window bigger or smaller. We added search. And just to show you what the different controls look like at the moment, these are the text controls. The text number, dates, time, input controls, checkbox, and so on. And the same kind of validation that we mentioned before for the text input fields are here in the web client also. So if I key in a URL, you can see that it first gave me an error, but when I actually have the right format, the error disappears. So I can continue with my my flow. The date input and the time input you will recognize again from the Android clients. the web client looks very much like the Android client. It's following the same design patterns. That might be good to know.
So yeah, similar here to Android, which is nice.
So we have the checkbox, the binary control, and now we have the grid. There is an expand button at the top of the user step,
Yay!
which is a user setting. So if you want a user step to use the full width of the screen, then you press the expand button. The default will be that it's set to 70% of screen width usage, but you can expand it if you have a lot of columns. And the grid.
Sorry for interrupting. Sorry for interrupting. I would like to express my emotions about it. So I'm really satisfied with that option.
It is beautiful.
Yeah, the functionality in the grid is what you can expect. It can sort, it can search. This is just to show what it looks like with all the different colors. You can select. There is a select all button, deselect all. You can add rows, you can delete rows, and so on. So I think that's it for those. Then we have the image viewer, the list presentation, and the GPS control. GPS control did not work in the, or doesn't work in the existing web client, so that's an additional feature. We have all the pinned steps. If I go into mobile mode, you can see that it works the same way, that you can slide back and forth to access the pinned steps.
Is this one of the feedbacks, Sophie?
Yeah, and just quickly, the last thing, here's the inbox, which again looks exactly the same way as in the Android client. So you would have your work orders. You can access the calendar by clicking on the calendar icon, and so on. Yes, that was it. Just some additional information for everybody. Since we have now released Android and iOS client, they have been live for quite some time. We are going to remove the old Android and iOS clients 31st of May this year. They will be removed from Google Play and App Store. So please download the new clients and start using them. If you have questions, feedback, anything, please let us know. Lukasz, over to you, please.
Oh, let me take a control over the screen. I think
we might have some questions.
Yeah, we are on the same page. Do you see my screen, guys?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So a quick summary. The first information that I hope is obvious now, that in Novacura, we believe we know our users, and definitely we know them better than like in the past years. And our mission is really to help them work more effectively or more efficiently. And we believe, and it was mentioned by Ola multiple times during this presentation, we believe that every single click matters. Every single click matters. If you don't believe in that sentence, let me present a quick calculation. One click repeated 1,000 times a day, and in 365 days over the year, by 100 users might give you a huge, huge result and might increase your net profit at your company. So we believe if we take care of each singular user and of their daily operations, we can do a lot to improve their efficiency, even if we don't change processes that much. So that's why we pay so much attention on the usability and user interface in our team. And the last word from us is that this is obviously not the end. So we are still working on the usability. Right now, we are spending our time on the back end parts of our ecosystem to make further improvements possible. So we need to do like a little step back to make a big leap forward in the future. So we are working on it right now, and we also improved our application release process, so we will be able to react faster on users' requirements and provide more improvements in the future. So this is our promise. I hope you believe us, because we also showed that we did a lot in terms of usability and user satisfaction. So this is all from us and prepared for today. We still have 10 minutes, of which I would like to save 5 for the Q&A questions. The first question is from Johan. Johan asks, I will literally read it, but you still only show 5 items at the time in the grid. So can you respond on that? Is it the limitation still there, or?
No, there will be a default setting as to how many rows, as in the user can set or admin can set that if there is a grid, this is the default setting of the amount of rows that should be shown. There is also, in the pagination, you can choose between 5, 10, 25, no, it's 10, 25, 50 and all. And that setting will be saved in your user profile. So you can show as many rows as you want.
Okay, I hope it answers the question. The second question is from Mahesh. Can we set some validation logic? Example, set a max text length for a field. I think that's really a reasonable question.
Yeah, it is. And no, you can't. Not in the studio. But there are.
Yeah, you need to put an assertion step the same way as the old client. For now.
So I hope this will be put in a change request queue, as we mentioned earlier. Okay, Magnus asks, will the new web client also replace the web client used in the portal too?
Yes.
Good question, yeah.
Thank you for a very concise answer. Now the other question is, Johan replied on your answer, wonderful. He just replied, wonderful. Okay, Christian asks, expand button, thumbs up. Question though, do the user have to press the expand button every time running a flow, or will this setting be saved?
The setting will be saved. It'll work the same way as the amount of rows in the grid. So the user, the first time you get there will be a default setting, then you would have to save it. I do think though that if you upload a new version of the workflow, that the settings will disappear. So there is a limitation, but if you don't make too many updates to the workflows, then the user will be able to have the settings they want.
Thank you. And I think the last question that we have right now is Nicholas asks, will you address the iOS button spacing in the near future? Will that be a setting?
I think I've seen screenshots. I think you are on an old version of the iOS client. I'm not 100% sure, but please make sure you're on the latest version. If you are and still want it, the spacing removed, then let me know. But please check first that you're on the right version. Because I've seen some screenshots being sent around in the office, and something they showed me came from a first version of the iOS client where it's a menu. They were fairly spaced out in the first version of the iOS client, but we did remove an awful lot of space. So please check that.
Nicholas asked another question. What is the right version though?
Latest, just go for the latest one. There is only one version. Go into App Store and let me know if you still think it should be changed. Then yeah, please let me know.
Pretty easy, isn't it? Latest is the latest. Okay, yeah, and the best always. Yeah, no more questions, and I think, but Nicholas said okay. Thank you, Nicholas, for your patience. I think we are done with Q&A questions. Let me quickly check if we have.
Mahesh had one more question there, I think.
Okay.
Are the back button in the app connected to the back button on the phone?
Don't believe so. Don't know at the top of my head.
Okay.
You have to test.
So now is the right time to jump into the survey, which is a typical part of our Launch and Learn sessions, an online survey. So let me start it. I hope you see the survey screen, the intro with the QR code. So once again, please enter menti.com and enter the code, or simply scan the QR code. I see one heart in there, so someone reacted. Thank you. I'll wait for you for a second, or maybe I will a lot of hearts. Oh my God. I'm thrilled by that. Cool to see that, really. Okay. But believe me, there will be more advanced questions. So first question, I hope you can see it now. The first question is, which of the presented improvements do you appreciate the most? And here you can vote by dragging and dropping, the bar. So it's not like on-off option. It's ability to search over lists as expected, overall look and feel, readability, good for the UI team, ability to refresh data. Who will win? We need more answers. I know it's hard to read in a short time, especially when the hosts disturb talking stupid things. Yeah. So, second to last, no. So I think we are done now, or almost. So ability to refresh data, auto refresh. Who voted on that previously? We had a bet. I voted on ability improved list management for scanned items, but it's not that popular, I see. Okay, the next question, similar form, is an even more complicated items. Which areas are the most important for your company? I will not disturb you now because it's really hard to read. I hope, yeah, it shows that there is a possibility to vote on it. Effectiveness from the end user perspective wins for now, which is good because I think we put a lot of attention on that aspect also in our today's presentation. So yeah, and equally important, integration and ability to manage business processes. Portal 2 is last, sorry, Portal in general is last right now. 20 responses. We still have like a minute. So yeah, I think we are mostly done with that. Really nice to know. And last question is like, feel free to share your ideas, your own ideas. What would you expect from us? Especially in the context of Flow clients. Still waiting for answers. Don't be so shy. Please share it with us. It will be recorded. It will be shared in the internet. So it's your chance to vote on something. Embedded map functionality. I think we know that. We identified that and we are working on it. It's a good point. It only shows that probably we do our best. I mean, there are no additional needs from users. Font size in screens. Yeah. More flow script functions. Yeah, that's correct. Embedded Java.
Yeah, every language. on the earth.
Yeah.
PhD.
Assembler. Better loading when starting up from start menus. Probably it boils down to the efficiency, maybe. Possible to hide columns based on variables. Possible to hide input fields based on variables. Yeah, so the connection between and dependencies between different fields. So when you choose a capital, then you have limited like cities connected to that, or maybe when you choose a country, then the list of cities is limited to the cities that exist in the selected country.
That also
We also know that, yeah, more customizable user interface like color, text fields. That would be nice, I think, yeah, and probably not that hard to. Better debug window in Flow Studio. Yeah, I see we have real experienced users between us today.
Us old people that comes from before we had the debug window, we just appreciate that it is there actually. Back in the days, you had to go into a client every time to try out your flows. So imagine that.
Right.
When I was your age.
Yeah, but it's good that people expect that, because I mean it really helps when you develop the app. Okay, I think we are out of time now, so I would like to officially thank you for the participation. My special thanks to Ola and Malin, or rather Malin and Ola. Thank you for your enthusiasm. And so like,
just it's also Malin's birthday, so if you happen to talk to her today, say happy birthday.
Okay. Should we sing a song or something? Maybe not now. It's recorded. So thank you once again. Thank you for participation, for being active during the survey. And I would like to remind you that we will have another Lunch and Learn session in a week or 2 weeks from now. We'll inform you later, as we usually do, by sending follow-up emails. So stay with us and you'll get the link to the recording of today's webinar, so you can always refer to that in the future. Thank you once again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.